This is the Messiah Hour with Ari Louis.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio.com. Thank you for joining us at any time during the show or after the show. You can email us at messiahhour@gmail.com, or if you'd like to make a financial contribution to the program, you can do so through PayPal at IsraelSportsRadio@yahoo.com. Of course, there is a lot of discussion about Kabbalah, what is real, what is legitimate, and other sources and other forces in Judaism that may be legitimate or not. On the line to discuss all this, the co-author of the new hit book, The World of the Ger, Rabbi David Katz. Rabbi, welcome back to the program.
Swami Katz.
All right. Swami Katz, yes, for this particular episode. So let's start first with abilities that are Jewish, if they're Jewish sources or not. Let's take a personal story myself. I was at the Kotel yesterday with a friend of mine, and a person came up to me and seemed to be able to read me, told me things about myself that were pretty accurate. So did he figure that out through body language, my eyes, my mouth, or did he figure that out through some special spiritual tool that I don't personally have?
It was around 3:46 p.m., right?
Yeah, how'd you know? No, I'm kidding. It wasn't. It was about 10 o'clock at night.
I meant 10 o'clock, right?
Oh, yeah, you got it right. How'd you know? There we go.
Yeah, so number one, Kabbalah is not fortune-telling. Let's get that clear. There's a lot of, there's so many things we could say from that question you just said. But yeah, number one is it's not fortune-telling, and how long am I going to live? And so if don't look for those things. That's not what it's about, number one. Number two, reading, though, is real. Reading people is, I think that's my favorite genre of Kabbalah. Not that I engage there per se, but I'm going to just go on a bit of a tangent, a little bit off from what you're saying, but same thing is that, again, this is a bit of a tangent, but it is going to answer. Jews are Kabbalah, number one. Like, even though you may be secular or whatever it is we or anybody listening are, our souls are Kabbalah, right? You have to, that's obvious, right? By the time you get into this study and science of your soul, there's many books and schools of thought of how to understand your soul. That's already a given, and we don't have to explain that. And most people don't live according to their soul, right? Even if, like, you say, oh, my root soul is from the nefesh of Bria, whatever that is, for the people listening. Right? You don't walk around and be like, I am the nefesh of Bria, I am the nefesh of Bria. Right? You don't do that. So even if you were to know certain things of your soul, you're just Bob, right? You're still just you. But it doesn't change the fact that you do have that soul, right? So it is a bit of a duality. And I was actually in a discussion last night about this, is what makes a Jew different from a non-Jew? There's many ways of cutting that up, but one really easy example of portraying that question is when Joseph went out of jail in the biblical story of Joseph. He all of a sudden, from the naked eye, became successful and very exalted, and he did amazing things. And the onlookers would have just been like, okay, amazing guy, way to go. Joseph, you're an awesome dude. But we know from the Kabbalah that was not the truth. What happened was the night before, he had an impregnation of soul, meaning a soul came into him, perhaps the biggest soul that ever lived, the angel, which we say in short form, or the angel Matat. And the angel Gabriel came and taught Joseph the 70 languages so that he was able to converse fluently with Pharaoh. So on the soul level, Joseph became like the Joseph program, right? The one that we all know in Kabbalah, and Mashiach ben Yosef as a prototype, and amazing things in spirituality. But on the ground level, it was still just some guy, right, doing amazing things. Moses was just some guy doing amazing things, meaning he might not have had intention. I am the partsuf of Erech Anpin of Atzilus. Moshe was Moshe at the end of the day. And we see his shortcomings in the Torah. It's not so far out. But it doesn't change the fact that his soul is very real. He is synonymous with the tree of life. He is Erech Anpin of Atzilus for those following along. And he is, amazing, amazing heights. So it's a duality And we see this duality plagues man all the time. Adam was, Adam Arishon. He was greatness in a body, and yet he felt that he was just Adam and not Adam, so to speak. He was some guy blaming his wife. I mean, we see the Torah is very humanity-oriented, but at the same time, off the charts insane levels of Kabbalah. So there is that duality. With that said, all the lame and mundane things that we do, and the pathetic things that we do, there is a spiritual reality going on, which is called mazel, right? It's the dynamic of your soul and the interactions of other souls that we are unaware of, and we become a chariot to that upper world. So here's the answer to the question now that we've given a little bit of background. Judaism is the culture of Kabbalah in practical living, right? You might not think that gefilte fish in the refrigerator is Kabbalah, but it is. God really made an ethnic people like Italians and Irish. The Jew is a God-made ethnic group, which is why Italians and Jews were always friends. Like in America, like in New York, they got along because God engineered the Jewish people to be like an ethnic people on the humane level. So Judaism becomes the engine of our ethnic traits. So where the Italian makes spaghetti, for whatever reason, spaghetti became spaghetti. And those following along are going to hear this and know exactly what I'm talking about. Jews have the reason to put gefilte fish in the refrigerator. And Ari, you probably know where gefilte fish comes from, right? We don't want to do forbidden work on Shabbos. So the fish becomes ground up, and eventually Jews figure out how to make this muck into something tasty for those that like it on Shabbos. And Judaism, again, it has that low-grade kind of feel of ethnic whatever, with schmaltz and all the things that we eat. And at the same time, it's very high in that it's driven from a very high spiritual source. So again, to bring this question into great focus, because it's a great question, Jews have a humanity that has divine qualities, right? There's a holiness in our humanity, even though we're low. For example, our culture. For example, let's look at Moroccans. Moroccans, if you ever go to a Moroccan synagogue, they don't talk during the davening. Ashkenazim, they like to talk, even though you're not supposed to. A lot of guys are doing business deals and talking. The Moroccans don't necessarily talk. They use their eyes. They stare and they communicate with their partsuf, with their panim, whereas it is a bit psychic. And I say this because my wife, when she was alive, my in-laws are Moroccan, and I was really amazed about how they lock in on like a not psychic, but unspoken, really clear body language as a modus operandi of communication, of real communication. And for example, when I go to Super Sol Deal on Friday, the famous thing is, the Arabs in this country will look at you and you look it back, and there's this little chest pounding and macho game that plays out for whatever reason, Kabbalistically, but they stare at you. And it's like they want the Jew to use his eyes as a koach, right? As a strength. So if you're not initiated in how it works in this country, you might, push up your sleeves and what are you looking at? And want to start a fight. And it's not about fighting per se. It's almost like male dominance in a healthy way. And I know it sounds barbaric, but a lot of things in this world is a bit of alpha male. I mean, Ari, basketball. I mean, LeBron is very alpha male on the floor.
Sure.
Right? Michael Jordan is like the king of alpha male in sports.
Right. And if you look at the Lakers, Kobe and Shaq are both alpha male, but then that didn't work out.
Right, and you see it might be primal, but it's real. It's really real. I mean, I see it in wrestling when I wrestle. It's there is this alpha male and female and alpha female. You put an alpha female amongst the females, you'll see the Partsuf working. So the Kabbalah works on that animal soul level. That's why I'm saying it's low, right? It's not like, oh, I am holier than you, right? It's not that. It comes down into the animal soul, because the animal soul, the Noga, is like the place for it. Klippa, which is a nice way of saying like the non-holy universe that we live in. Because it's non-holy, it's more gashmi. It's more physical and low and malleable, right? It's like, don't give me a nice vase, give me a lump of mud, right? Because eventually the vase was mud once upon a time. So in the mud, God animates the mud world as opposed to the beautiful vase, and it's malleable, and you can construct with it. So when King David speaks about this in Psalms, when something shady is going to go down, the animal soul tips off the righteous one. He'll wink, right? Or he'll tell his friends, and there's signs. We actually, if I see that you're a donkey in your behavior, you will actually bray like a donkey. Right? This is what King David says. So it's like I say, you're trying to get me into a bad deal, and I say, hey, but your name is just Bob. Who do you think you are? And he's like, hey, and I'm like, man, you sounded just like a donkey. And we laugh and we mock the guy, and he gets all upset, and he's going to threaten me. But if you pay attention, the mazel is that there are signs in the physical world, right? So he's actually acting like a donkey. And what it's saying is, hey, righteous guy, this guy, he's such an animal, he's like a donkey. And what it means is he's trying to rip you off, he's a bad guy. So the physical world in its very, very coarse, crass elements, and we all have it because we all have that animal soul, that animal actually tips you off into an accurate reading of your spiritual self. You see, it's like the holiness is brought low, which Kabbalistically we know it works that way, and you can read and understand what people are doing by their faces, their actions, their scratching, all these things that we do. We're like, why do I get nervous and put my hands on my head, then my hips, and then I sneeze and I'm scratching my nose, right? If I'm really keen and really versed and I'm studying quick and processing, I can understand what your soul is doing and about. And there's many connotations, right? It's like any wisdom. Am I interested in where your soul comes from? Are you threatening me? Are we friends? There's an infinite amount of languages that can be spoken at any time in any wisdom. But the animal soul is perfect in that it reflects that language, and the Kabbalah is the study of how to interpret that, the resonance, the energy, the mazel, the dynamic. It really is an infinite field of study once you understand simply that there is, by definition, always something to study.
Again, this is the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio.com. Thank you for joining us. Our guest this afternoon is Rabbi David Katz, the co-author of the book, The World of the Ger. Rabbi Katz, with the story I said, this person, I believe, was not Jewish, and he was analyzing me. I want to know, you take a Mekubal, a big Kabbalist, that can look at a picture of someone or look at you and analyze you. Are they using Jewish wisdom or a Jewish source? Or, again, is it just what I was talking about, a type of body language, a type of look in the eyes, facial structure, whatever? So when a Mekubal does it, is he using Jewish power or just regular body language like other people?
His job is, number one, to be filled with wisdom, which obviously comes from Torah, right? And Torah ideology. So when he's in the world, he's gaining knowledge and wisdom, even albeit secular, but from a Torah methodology, right? It's like, for example, he's going to study the blot. I'm not making this literal, but let's say he's watching the basketball game, okay? He's going to make a Torah drasha out of it, or maybe the Matrix, right? The Matrix. He's going to make a Torah drasha and not a shtusi drasha. So he's all the time, like King Solomon says, making a funnel on his ear for wisdom. That's number one. Number two, all interpretation comes from God. So he is a Makubal, Kabbalah, Makubal. Someone is a Kabbalist is called a Makubal. He is receiving. He is only meant to receive from God. So his job is, number one, to be prepared and expect, because God is always sending. Being able to receive from God, that's the wisdom, is the chibur, the connection to God. And the Jew is the most, let's say it, internally receptive to receive from God. Right? You know, what would you rather have if there's a Wi-Fi in Jerusalem? You can have an Apple, okay, an Apple iPad, new one, a good one, or some kind of cheap Chinese, really dodgy brand, like Sung Tang Klang, you know, that you found at some street vendor for 100 shekels. Which one would you rather have?
I don't know. Probably not the one with the street vendor.
Right. You want the one with the good machine, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you're multitasking, you want good power. I learned this. I bought a really bad tablet when they first came out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the cheap one. I don't like Apple anyways. It's all conspiracy and Steve Jobs. Yeah, I just want a cheap one. No, that was bad move. The cheap ones really have junk parts. They're not good. I know we all don't necessarily like Apple. I don't also, but the fact is the iPad really does work. And when it comes to that kind of analysis, you want it that it works. So the Jew, his insides, his soul, on this aspect, right? Apple might not be good for, you know, IBM processing, right? So, you know, define your function. I have a Galaxy phone, which I like, but for Apple causes, okay, you might prefer Apple. So for this kind of thing, Kabbalistic antenna, the Jew is the choice, right? That's the Jewish job. That's our mission. That's who we are. So he's going to be able to crunch that data that God sends to him on the spot and be able to articulate and express feedback on the character of whatever it is he's analyzing. So if Kabbalah is your thing, you'll be able to be prepared, fuel your cause, receive from God, connect to God, receive from God on that level inside, interpret, make an analysis, express, and with accurate results. That's really what King David was about, 100% in Psalms. Someone not Jewish, Judaism is not monopoly. Right? We don't have exclusive rights to God, even though some people think we do. The fact is God is universal. If there's a non-Jew who, by whatever reason, has the ability naturally to do these things, or even he works on it, b'vakasha, no problem. Right? If this person is uneducated but just natural, then it can be something. The biggest difference is, you know, that street tablet might be great. Don't know. Maybe there is a secret Japanese brand or Chinese brand that we don't know about that's really good. Don't know. But the fact is, you can't go wrong with drinking Coca-Cola, right? You know what you're getting with Coke. Is there another cola, like in some weird supermarket in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that sells great Coke? Could be, right? We've all had that really great store Coca-Cola version. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it isn't. I'm not saying every Jewish person is Coca-Cola either, right? There's a lot of ripoffs that are name brands too. So, I know I'm speaking kind of in a coarse way of expressing this, but basically, if anybody actually can do it, then there's no reason to discredit or discount the fact that they did it.
Again, this is the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio.com. Thank you for joining us. We're speaking with Rabbi David Katz, co-author of the book The World of the Ger. Let's talk about the three types of Kabbalah: practical, theosophical, prophetic. Tell the audience what is the difference between each of those and why they're all three vital, why they all have to be together.
All right, so let's make an example, a common example. When you first approached me with this little lecture, we talked about palm reading, right?
Right.
So everyone's heard of palm reading, and it's a big question. Which is your question? Is it true? Is it real? Let's try to stay away from it. But let's plug it into the three pillars here. How do you know about palm reading, for example? right? It's spoken of in I'm going to make up my own words here and for distinctions, just for the sake of discussion. Regular Kabbalah, right? That's what I'm calling it. Regular Kabbalah. You might call that also Lurianic Kabbalah, the Arizal, Sfirot. Basically, if you buy a regular standard stock Kabbalah book, the Essential Kabbalah, or whatever it is you'll buy in Borders Bookstore or whatever in America, we're going to call that regular Kabbalah. And in that world is, let's say, the Makor, or the source of palm reading, right? You're reading about this world and Adam and his world and Abraham and was this world, and by the way, he read the palm, and then just kind of like throwing it in there because it does pop in strange places, these kind of alternative Kabbalistic things. So in the regular Kabbalistic literature, there is a precedent for the existence of palm reading. Then you'll get into the mystical experience. They'll read about this Kabbalist. He shook when he read God's name, and he had a vision. Okay, that's what we call that. I forget the whatever term they use, but let's call it the mystical experience, the mystical Kabbalah. And that's like saying that you decide, since you do have a palm, you decide one day, you know what, I want to know what I'm all about. I'm going to investigate my palm. And you go out and you buy a specific palm book now, based from those sources. And you get the specific one now. And there's like a long line on my hand, and it says that this line means that I am very fast. I'm an extremely fast guy. And I know that. I'm fast. I always knew that. So, you're like, yeah, of course I am. So you now are in the mystical experience. I'm speaking obviously general, but you get elated and you're all excited and you feel your body shook and you'll tell your friends, whatever it is. Then you had this guy threaten you, and you're not going to take any of that. Again, don't try this at home. But you say, I'm not going to be subjected to abuse from you. I'm the fast palm guy. So this is practical Kabbalah, or magical Kabbalah, right? So it's like when he comes to attack you, this theoretical villain, you hold up your hand, you're like, see that line? I'm the fast palm guy. And then he just backs off, and he's like, he never talks to you again. Now, I'm making that up, but you understand the point, right? There's really putting Kabbalah into practice, what you've learned, right? There's a study of that, a realm for that, really doing Kabbalistic actions that produce bona fide results. Then there's the experience of the Kabbalah, right? You meditated on it, you actually got a response, right? You had a vision, your body shook. You just bliss, joy, you were even upset, whatever it is. You were moved. There was something that happened to you from the study of Kabbalah. And there's just, let's say, the study of Kabbalah. Classic knowledge, not meant to be to the point of something acute. Doesn't need to come to an acute place. It can just remain a theoretical study, discussion, interesting, improving my life a little bit. Those are the three categories, essentially.
Okay, again, this is Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. Thank you for joining us. Let's go back to palm reading, where you're saying that there is a Jewish source for it to be accurate. So talk about the difference between a non-Jewish way or a way that is forbidden of palm reading versus the Jewish way to do it.
All right, we could also make the linkage to astrology. I think it's the same kind of thing.
Okay, sure, fair enough.
Yeah. I'll bring astrology in at the end of this. So, in the Zohar, I don't know exactly. I've been through the Zohar, but I didn't pay attention exactly how much it's spoken about palms. So, let me just change it a little bit because I know for a fact that parts of reading is in the Zohar. Okay, like reading someone's face. Is that fair?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so I know for a fact the Zohar speaks about reading facial features and punim and partsuf, okay? It's in there. It goes in a little bit, the red of someone's eye means this, the white means that, the pupil means this. And it's not lengthy by any means, but it's there. It's definitely there. And there will be different Mekubalim Oh, a lot of times Sephardi, Moroccan, they get into that more, I think, than Ashkenazim. And they make a chachma out of it. A chachma is anything. Anybody that has an insight, God gives them a particular wisdom. And you could say my wisdom is the Rabbi David Katz program is ger, right? God made my brain to simply understand the learning of ger. Why? Don't know. Ask God. You understand radio. Why do you understand that? Why don't you trip up when you say your stuff? I don't know. That's your wisdom. So some people learn this wisdom and they understand, right? The facial stuff. They get it. And that would become kosher Kabbalah. It might not be for everybody to get into. Someone who his rabbi would say, look, Bob, it's not for you. You're a funny kind of guy. You're always blaming people for getting at you. Don't learn this. It's just going to, take you the wrong way. But another guy is purely innocent, and it's good for him. He just loves studying it, and he wants to learn that wisdom. So there's a precedent from Masorah, Jewish tradition. Non-kosher reading of faces. Fortune tellers, because you have your eyebrow comes to this point in your head, means you're going to live 95 years. Sorry, you're going to live 95 years. That's very good.
That's a good deal for me.
Yeah, you're going to live a nice life. Usually they bring Yashka in, like every time. There's always like a bit of Avodah Zorah. You're going to bring Yashka or Krishna, some Hindu stuff, something, even if it's not blatantly Avodah Zorah, it's going to make you feel a little funny, right? I've heard people say that tarot cards, might not be Avodah Zorah. I have not investigated it, but I guarantee you, if I started teaching Kabbalah, and the tarot card says on this, you're probably not going to think nice things about me. You're like, okay, Rabbi Katz was cool until he brought out the tarot cards. So, when it gets a little bit funny, that's a good sign that it got funny, right? The more it sticks to something kosher, that's what kosher is. Why don't we eat certain parts of the animal? Because that's where it gets funny. Judaism is where, meaning in a certain way, is where it doesn't get funny. Judaism is not idolatry. We don't get into anything about
funny if it's like a Jewish comedian, then it's okay.
Right. But a Jew would never even begin to flirt with anything called a Trinity. All right, don't even tell me God's got 3 names and it's like 3 part. No. Right? Okay, we know about there are 3s in Judaism and stuff. But once you start getting there, no, we're not going there. It's just we don't go there. So anytime something non-kosher goes there, then it's already off track of kosher. And it could. This is called minus. It's not exactly Avodah Zorah. It's a type of heresy. Minus meaning like an object that you begin to. Your mind becomes the tool itself. Right? You are the reception. You're not receiving anymore. You are the reception. That's already called guessing. Nachash, which we know in the Torah, Nachash means to divine, to guess and to fortune tell, basically.
This young
so when it gets already into those realms,
the truth about life,
it's bad news. Even if it's accurate, and a lot of it is accurate.
Sure
that's why Jews fall into it.
That they will come like that. I think that
people get into funny things, and it's like it will be accurate.
You're a hypocrite.
But you want it to be kosher. You want to have peace of mind, because once you get like a bad a bad thought from these things, it can be very damaging. But it's not essential damage. It's that you believe into something damaging, and you believe there's damage. Like if I told you, Ari, don't say this prayer, because people that don't say that, they lose their olam haba, right? Now let's say I'm totally making that up, and I'm just a bad guy out to hurt you. And you're like, oh my God, I said it, I'm gonna lose everything, and you go into like a depression for a week. You're like, my soul's gone, I feel it. Right? You might actually feel something crazy, but once you shake off that nourishkeit, you never hurt your soul, and you're just fine. You are never actually in danger. Right? It's like the Matrix. Your mind makes it real. Your soul is eternal. You cannot kill God. And a lot of bad Kabbalah wants to say, you're gonna kill your soul, damage your soul. You're essentially killing God. What they're really saying is your ability to relate to your soul can become damaged. And that's like your mental process, but they don't tell it over that way, right? But real Kabbalah is nourishment for your soul. And if you do get stuck in a bad Kabbalah, like a bad trip almost, if you get caught in bad stuff, you have to work to do tshuva to get it out of you, the energy, but you'll find out, you're not going to damage your soul. Now, if you go into Avodah Zorah and you think that Yashka is God and these things, and then you realize, like Anakin Skywalker killing, the Jedis, like, what did I do? You might have some serious tshuva to do, right? And that's not going to be fun, and it was painful. But you're not doomed. You can always return to God. You can always get in touch with your soul. But remember, if you do an Avera, if you sin, you get off track, you do have to get back on track. That is the unspoken realities of this world. Divorce is the biggest one there. Right? You think that when you're divorced, oh, thank God she's gone. Now I can get on with my life. No, you got to deal with it. You're not off the hook. You do have to repair everything you do. The good news is God loves you and helps you and is kind. And really, the amount of damage that you could have done or did do, God mitigates it. And this is where Gilgulim come in and reincarnation, right? You deal with it, but it's like the mashal, the analogy. The king wanted to kill his son with a 1,000,000-pound rock, but for the sake of his son, he broke the rock into basically dust and then just threw the dust at his kid. So God is merciful, and he deals with you even though you may have done something that should have been much more heavily punished.
So you were saying about getting back on the right track. In your opinion, what would be the best way to do that, most efficient, given the situation you just described?
Well, it's hard because if you're on the wrong track, it means you're hanging out with the wrong people, right? And that means the reason why you're hanging out with the wrong people is because you straight up don't know where the truth is. So even if I told you the truth, you wouldn't hear it. You wouldn't identify it. You wouldn't want it. I mean, this is a classic thing. Why didn't you tell me I was? It's like you wouldn't listen. So you have to just pray and really connect to God. And if you are on the wrong track and you're on your way back, in a fictitious world where if I could speak to everybody, even though it's impossible, my eternal advice would be, you're never out. It's never too late. You can always repent. Just get kosher and stop the funny stuff. Because we always want to go to funny stuff. Like get rich quick and the quick way to doing something. There is no quick way. One reason why I have Ger as opposed to Noahide in my teachings, Noahide is like a quick, easy, I was in the church yesterday and thank God I found the truth today and I'm done. Well, yes and no. But it's a journey back to God. It's a lifestyle. So Ger is what provides the methodology to effectively get back to God as if you care. It's like in high school, if you got an F on a test one week and graduation's coming and you really don't know your stuff, what are you going to do by the next test? You might cheat. But I'm not really cheating. I'm just like, putting answers on my hand. Not a big deal, right? Who cares? Everyone does it. And you rationalize, and the teacher hates me, and he's a bad guy. He'll probably be fired anyways. So you rationalize. He graded my last test wrong, and I deserved a D, and I wouldn't be failing. I mean, you make cheshbonos. So even if it's not so acute as that, but you figure out, you know what? I want the truth. I'm tired of this. And then what do? You say, there's a Kabbalah center by my house. How bad could it be? I mean, I know they say it's a cult, but I'm going to give it a shot. They're nice people. I know people that go. Right? So once you've done that, you're paying for it. You're going to pay for that experience. More ways than one. You might benefit, but ultimately you're just kind of going on a diet. You went from eating McDonald's to now you're eating Long John Silver's. Eventually you have to do the hard work. And everyone has these life crises that you learn these lessons. Right? When you become a diabetic, you learn the hard way. Right? You get healthy real quick. So unfortunately, God does rely on those rock bottom situations with mankind. And unfortunately, I think that's the best way to come back on track. Otherwise, we're in denial, we're hard-headed, and we keep trying to cut corners, and it just doesn't work, especially with Kabbalah.
All right, again, this is the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. My guest is Rabbi David Katz, co-author of the book The World of the Ger. Last question for you, Rabbi. It is interesting that even though people may be in a lowly place, that Kabbalah is interested or has seen interest for people of all different spectrums, whether it's Madonna, Rav Berg in California, that whole Kabbalah Center thing in Los Angeles. Where exactly is that coming from, in your opinion?
There's a lot of ways it could be, but one thing people say is it's like the whole old axiom: if you're not going to learn it right, then we're going to bring it out of the source that you don't want. So it's like if you don't teach Ger, then there's going to be a Jesus to teach Christianity, so to speak. I know it's not exactly the story, but you get my point. So if you don't teach and endorse Kabbalah the right way, then Madonna is like not the holiest of people, right? In terms of online image and things. It's going to come from that. And that's what it is. We're getting the Kabbalah from the backside. Not necessarily backside, Sitrach or Kabbalah. There is good things that come out of there. It's not totally evil, but the world wants Kabbalah. They're starving for Kabbalah, and they're gonna take that shortcut, and they're gonna go get it if we're not gonna offer it. I mean, what is Christianity? Christianity is a movement. They don't know what it is, as I'm about to say, but it is. It's saying if you're not going to teach Ger, then we're going to invent our version of Ger. Right? If you're not going to, teach the real universal Torah, then we're going to invent our own. We're going to mimic you. That's what the backside does, is it mimics. So if Kabbalah is not going to come out the right way, we're going to find a way for it to come out. And people are getting excited about Kabbalah. It's catching on, but I watched this new movie that came out. I don't know if you saw the ad for it, Ari. Kabbalah Me. Did you see that?
No, I did not. Sounds pretty interesting, though.
Yeah, it's a guy, a really exiled secular Jew in America. The movie was amazing in its clarity and extremely depressing in its exile mentality. Because he was. The guy's name was Steve in the movie. It's a documentary. And I am Steve. I am him. Right? I think you maybe were. We all were. We're all secular and lost. And we all end up in different places from our passion to return. And he wanted to find out what Kabbalah was. And he called Aisha Torah. And he called his relatives in Brooklyn. And he went through some Chabad. Right? All the stops that we know today in the Jewish world. And eventually he went to Israel and talked to some people in Jerusalem. And he went to Sfat. And what kills me is I know this guy's world. Right? By the time he was checking out Kabbalah, I know the people he talked to personally. Or if not personally, one step away. And I'm not saying these are bad people. What I'm saying is, in the end, he never really got the answers he wanted. Because he wasn't asking the right questions. He wasn't even that serious to get those answers. He was just kind of checking it out. I'm a tourist, and it's fun. Kabbalah is awesome, blah, 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 blah. But the depressing part was, it's like Mashiach was there whispering in his ear every turn he took, and he never saw it. It's like, when you I don't know an example, but I'm sure if I were to make a radio show, and I was like, hey, Ari, check this out. I think I'm amazing. You would probably see where I made the wrong mistake every turn. I used the wrong music. I read the wrong thing. I said the wrong thing. I brought up the wrong comments the wrong times. I don't have that wisdom. And when you're really wrong, it's amazing because this is a Kabbalistic principle. The more perfectly wrong you are, the more you highlight what's right. Right? So like when Michael Jordan shines is when the opponent is just radically wrong. It's called exploitation, right? When blown coverage in football, it's when Peyton Manning's the master of that, right? When he knows the defense you're running and he knows you're going to buy into this, then the guy's wide open in the end zone. Why? Because he did it perfectly wrong. I made you think I'm going right, and it ended up being you have to go left. So this guy looking for Kabbalah, he went perfectly wrong every step. The people he contacted. For example, he asked a Litvish. All right, listen to this. Tell me what you think. He asked a Litvish yeshiva bacher if he thought that Steve should learn Kabbalah. What do you think about that?
Okay, sounds like times are changing then.
No, the bacher says, like, no way. You know, you can't do that. Right? So, you know, it's like, no, man, you asked the wrong guy. You know, I mean, it's a famous joke is if you ask a posek, a person that renders Jewish law, it's all in how you ask it. It's always in how you ask the question. And so he asked the question wrong every time, in that he could have had amazing astronomical results. And in the end, it was a half-baked movie. And that's Kabbalah today. It's coming out half-baked. So it's there, but we're not getting what we should out of our spirituality and our Kabbalah, only because there's just kind of a distortion. You know, if it was coming out from the right areas, things would be different.
All right, well, there you have it. Again, this has been another episode of the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsAndNewsRadio.com. Our email is messiahhour@gmail.com. If you like what you heard and want to send a financial contribution, you can do so through my PayPal account, IsraelSportsRadio@yahoo.com. You want to pick up a copy of the Rabbi's book, you can go to GerGer.com. The book is The World of the Ger, written by Rabbi David Katz, my guest this afternoon. Rabbi, thank you for being on the program today.
Thanks for having me back as always, Ari.
Indeed, and everyone can check out an episode of this program on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type in Messiah Hour with Ari Louis. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is free to do so, and check out our other episodes. This has been another episode of the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.